Whether you're joining one of our events for the first time or if you're a seasoned regular, welcome to the Developer Marketing Summit. We have an incredible selection of innovative content lined up for you today, but before we dive in, I just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, speakers, and you, our lovely audience, for joining us. From wherever in the world you are watching, we're sure you'll enjoy today's talks. To get the most out of these sessions, please make sure you're sharing your feedback and asking your questions in the comment section for our speakers to answer. Each of today's sessions recordings will be uploaded into our on-demand content library, which you can access with a PMA Pro membership or Access All Areas Pass. We are also really excited to announce the launch of the Developer Marketing Alliance becoming its very own community. You can now join our Slack channel to connect with peers, get access to fresh content, and discover new opportunities. So with all of this to look forward to, let's get started.
Welcome everybody. So great to have you here. We're excited to be part of this year's Developer Marketing Summit. I'm Connie Tai, CMO at Instruct. With developers increasingly involved in software purchasing decisions, marketers have a growing need to understand what is the best way to attract and engage with these customers. Our special guests today have a lot of experience in this area. So please join me in welcoming Roland Wolters, Principal Technical Marketing Manager at Isovalent. I'll pass it on to Roland and have him introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. As said, my name is Roland Wolters. I'm working for Isovalent, company specialized in Kubernetes data plane, network security and observability, you might say. And I'm with the company for half a year, driving the technical marketing there. Before that, I was part of the Ansible team at Red Hat, there also as a technical marketing manager. I did this for quite a few years there. And before that, I even was a sales engineer. So I even have a sales path and that perspective, you might say. Before that, I had other jobs in the technical industry like project manager, consultant, and so on. Though I gotta admit, I'm probably best remembered by the fact that I have triplets, 3 young kids. And if you see any conferences of me, or especially recordings, you might see even images of them. But maybe not today.
Thank you so much, Roland. Super happy to have you here with me today. So before we continue our conversation with Roland, I would like to tell you a little bit about Instruct, because you will also hear Roland mentioning that in his talk. So Instruct is a hands-on virtual IT labs platform. We help marketers, sales, customer success, and education teams at software companies to generate demand and grow adoption at scale. They love using Instruct because it gives them a fast and easy way to demonstrate the value of their software in a production-like environment. The best way for people to experience the true value of your software is by doing. Instruct help developer marketers hit their goals faster by using our platform to educate and inspire developers about that technology. They build tutorials, product demos, workshops, and training on our platform with a hands-on approach that developers enjoy to engage with. And best of all, they only need a web browser to explore their technology. So, in our introduction, we mentioned that developers are increasingly important in making decisions on software purchases, but it's challenging to market to them. So maybe we can start to understand from Roland, why is that the case?
Sure. So the main thing about developers is, of course, they're tech heavy. So they prefer to have an actual understanding of the technology they're about to purchase or use. So you cannot just give them a few nice words and sentences and say, well, this is nice, please buy. Also, developers actually have a quite negative attitude often towards the typical sales methods. Let's say presentations, marketing videos, advertisement. I mean, a lot of developers actually run ad blockers on their systems, so you can't even reach them with ads, right? So it's hard to reach them with a traditional method. At the same time, they're very critical about of data and about numbers. So if you tell them, well, our analyst study shows we are 5 times faster than the others, developers might actually take you up on that and say, okay, let's do a POC, show us this 5 times increasement. Yeah. And of course, apart from that, there is a new normal, making it even more difficult to market to developers. Of course, I'm referring here to COVID. It's before the pandemic hit, we had conferences, we had workshops, we had meetups, we had the meetings. So you were in a room with the people. You could actually see, you could read the room and see, are they buying in? Are they understanding it? Is it working for them? Are we actually talking about something which is interesting to them? And at the same time, you could also basically walk up to them and start talking to them. Now, we are currently in a remote world. Remote is a new normal, and this affects everyone everywhere. So we will not go back to the past times. In best case, the future will be hybrid. So we have to find ways how to do this all in a remote way. Remote sessions are hard. However, I'd just like to add, at least there's one small advantage here. In the past, sometimes we had customers who couldn't be reached at all. For example, I was working with governmental customers who told me they don't have internet access for security reasons. This changed. At least with the new normal, everyone now is allowed to go out onto the internet with browsers and have remote sessions. But apart from that, remote sessions are very challenging in its own.
So what are the major challenges you see in remote sessions?
There are a lot. I hardly know where to start, but the biggest one is probably it's the webinar fatigue, right? Everyone is bored by presentations. There are just too many webinars out there.
Yeah.
And it's not only the webinars, the sales webinars, it's also the internal conferences calls. It goes even so far that I know of companies who speak about or who are planning to introduce conference-free or call-free days, where one day you are not allowed to have any web calls because there are just so many. And based on this, people lose quickly attention. And I think everyone here knows this. Everyone already has been in a webinar where they realized the last 5 minutes I was not listening at all. I was looking out of the window, maybe.
Yes.
Or the window here.
I hope with this session, our audience will attend until the end, though.
I hope so. And this is the point, right? We as sellers, we as marketeers,
Yes.
we have these additional challenge to make sessions which are interesting. And at the very same time, there is an additional problem. I don't see what's going on. The developers turn off their cameras. So I can talk for 50 minutes and I have no idea if anyone is listening, if they are even there, and what their reaction is, because usually there's only very few feedback. There's very few people actually interacting or asking questions. And again, this is when you have developers in the room, it gets even harder because they're not keen to look at slides. They're not keen to talk to salespeople or marketing people at all. So quite difficult situation altogether.
Okay, well, so marketing to developers is hard, and it gets harder with the new normal. So we're faced with a lot of challenges, basically. Should we give up, or what do you recommend?
Yeah. Let's actually, yes, let's stop selling. And I mean it in a way, because what I mean is let's stop the traditional selling. Don't do webinars anymore. The setup of one-to-many webinar where you have a lot of developers on the other side and just hope that they're listening to you. This is not an efficient usage of your time as a marketer or salesperson, and it's not an efficient use of their time. And they want to be appreciated, right? So basically, we should stop this approach. Because there is no interaction in there, and no interaction means you lose. So what we need is a constant interaction and an engagement during our sessions with them.
Yes. Well, as marketers, we always look for engagement, right, with our audience. It's easy to say, but how do you get developers engaged?
Yeah, I know it's always easy to say, well, you should do something, but the aim is you need to tell a story, and this is what every marketing person says anyway, but you need to make the developers live this story. That means you need to guide them along steps of discovery and achievement. a little bit like gamification. So we need to have content which is put in a way that the developers are going through it, going through the story, have a little bit of fun maybe in there, and as a side effect, go through your product and see the features of the product. At the other side, you also need to be careful that you package it the right way, because one-to-many webinar is not the right packaging. What you need is something the developers like to consume. And they do not like to consume a presentation about a product and the pricing. What they like to consume is something about features and certain use cases. So the content needs to be structured in the right way. It needs to be packaged in the right way. And it needs to be consumable upon request. I mean, literally everyone I speak to in IT is always busy. There's so much to do.
Yes.
So we need to have it in a way that they can just click a button and consume it when they have the time. And in the end, interaction and engagement in this format, in this way, means one thing. It means hands-on. It means experiencing the actual code. It means seeing the actual program. Seeing is believing.
Okay, wow. Sounds like a plan. Are you doing this right now? I'm wondering also if you have done that in the past. What are the possible approaches here? Is there a right approach? So I have many questions for you, Roland.
Okay, I'll try to answer them. So, first and foremost, yes, I'm doing this right now, but I also have my journey behind me reaching this spot where I am. And the journey started kind of classical with how-tos. I've written a lot of how-tos, mostly on my blog posts, but also for past companies, which is an extension to the documentation. And this works, right? You just tell people, here's what you do. You can even do it in a story format and tell them, please install this Vagrant environment and this virtual machine and this software code, and then do this and that. But first and foremost, this requires a lot of doing from the customer side right before they even start with your product, installing VMs and so on. And some people can't even do this on their enterprise laptops, and they don't want to invest this time. And as the marketing person, you have no idea if this is actually used. You have no idea if people are actually running through the tests. In worst case, after half a year, you run through this how-to again and realize, oh, the very first download link is broken for half a year and no one ever told you. So this is really tricky. This is the easiest way, the how-to one, but it's also the most tricky one without any insight. The next step, and I did this a lot in the past, is where you start writing the entire thing yourself, where you create a hands-on environment where you can spin up labs for people whenever they need it. And this worked. Again, we did this a lot, like at least, a lot. And we deployed our environments, for example, on AWS, and there were so many environments that I even got into fights with the AWS support people and told them their clouds are not big enough. So this was working in a way, but we spent a lot of time just maintaining the entire thing. And features like progress tracking or feedback forms or something is even something where you have to put in more work and more maintenance before you wrote the first line of product content. At some times, I was investing up to, let's say, 50, 60% of my time to just maintaining this all. And this wasn't a good use of my time. And again, I mean, there was another thing, because at some point I took this project over, I joined it and then enlarged it. And at some point I was wondering, who is paying for this, for all these AWS machines? And there is a smart way. In a smart way, you can either ask these questions, or it can be smart to not ask these questions. I was kind of smart to start asking this question. And of course, at the end, I reached a person who said, oh, you are consuming all this money. Yeah, by the way, it's your budget. You owe me, and I don't know, it was like 6-digit number of money or 7-digit number. And I realized at that moment, okay, I spent my marketing budget for the next 10 years. And I had to write a very funny email at that night to my manager saying, we do have a problem. So it's not only about the maintaining of your code and the entire environment, it's also in maintaining of the resources and money and the billing. So in the end, you become a software vendor for hands-on lab environments without even writing a single line of product content at that time. You have to do this on top. And so what we decided in the end was we wanted, and this is, I think, the best approach, the right approach, you might say, we take a service which has this already laid out, where we jump in and right from the start write only about our product. And all these feedback forms and progress tracking and how to set up the environment and billing and so on and so on is all left with people who do this as their daily job. And since they sell it to others, it's shared costs for us, so it's not that expensive for us. Let me quickly share my screen. So this is the web page or the main page of Instruct, and I picked one lab. This is our most favorite lab, Cilium Getting Started. So this is our intro lab to the entire technology we have, to our core technology. It gives a little bit of introduction, but quickly, if I scroll down, goes into the actual challenges. And the challenges are what I meant by the steps of discovery and achievement. Each challenge introduces a certain, let's say, piece of the entire story, shows it to the developers or to the technical folks, give them some tasks to do. They will do the tasks, and then they come to the next challenge. And the interesting piece here is also that within each challenge, I can even see if they started it, if they stopped it. So I get a lot of insight, of detailed insight. How is this working? As a small example, in the statistics, I can quickly show you this. Here I even see by all the challenges how many people started it, how many stopped it. And there's always a drop off within one challenge. But I see that there is a lot of drop off here in the very first challenge. And I might want to dig into this. I had this in the past actually at the third challenge, where I realized there's something wrong. A lot of people drop off in the middle of the third challenge. I have to look into this. And I found bugs in my own how-to. This is very helpful. At the same time, if we look into a challenge, in the challenge itself, I have my discussion and the data I provide to my technical people, but I can also provide the actual technology. And this is done in the so-called tabs. Let me quickly go through them. I define tabs that people can work in. And a tab is not only, let's say, a command line interface. It can be a web page. It can be a program working there on the machines. And I can have multiple of these tabs. So I'm not bound to only one way how this all is consumed. I can present a whole environment to my customers, to my developers. And for us, especially, the very interesting piece here is this is not limited to one machine. We are dealing with Kubernetes at Isovalent. And so Kubernetes is about clusters. So if I want to show this to developers, I better have my cluster to show. So Instruct supports me in this by enabling me to run entire clusters just for this one single developer who started the track. And let's have a look into how this actually looks like. In the beginning, when a person clicks, start this track, start this lab, they still see, or they can see a few, let's say, slides, a little bit of context, where you guide them through what is this all about, what is the story here, what are the advantages, even giving them a small image or architecture diagram until this stage is set, and then they click on start. And as you can see on the left side, we actually have a command line interface here. And this is the real deal. This is not a mock-up. This is not a faked environment or something. I can type in here anything I want. And I can even check out details about the machine I'm running on. But I can also, of course, follow the steps laid out on the right side, where it said, now let's enter this command, enter it in here, right, and see what's actually happening. So it's a real interactive system. At the very same time, I can also show them, for example, the Kubernetes dashboard. So I can let the people click forth and back between a CLI, a dashboard, and whatever I need to properly sell them or properly show them the product and the capabilities of the product. And regarding the feedback, what I mentioned, when you write a how-to, you don't get any feedback. When you write the self-pay, or when you do this entire environment yourself, you can bring in feedback forms, but it's pretty hard. Here, it's all embedded. Let me show you the happiness bar, because I like it so much, because I even see how many people give feedback and on what level. And there's one who just entered the 2. By the way, this happened yesterday. So I'm really wondering what happened there. Of course, I can't reach out to them, but at least I see it's not 100% working for everyone, but there's some more to dig into.
As a marketer,
Last,
this is very relevant, right? To understand how your audience interacts with it.
oh yes. And as a technical person here, I'd like to add one thing. If I'm done with something here, as a user, as a developer, I click on the next. I want to go to the next challenge. And here I click on a check button. And the check button actually verifies that everything is working. So from challenge to challenge, I'm guided. And if something is not done in the right way, I'm even told, hey, you developer, you did something wrong. How about you better look into this point again? So it's even if the developers or the people consuming your marketing content here, even if they make errors, mistakes, something, they get help right away, which is very important because imagine a developer picks this at their, I don't know, 11 p.m. They can't call someone and say, hey, something is not working.
Exactly.
But the entire environment helps us to guide through this. And as you see, by the way, we do tell a story here. You see Death Star, Empire, TIE Fighter. So our story here is even Star Wars themed a little bit. Yeah, and this is what we currently have, and I can only recommend it to everyone. We started with this, or I started with this at Red Hat after creating our own environment to do hands-on labs, our own homegrown, and this gave us advantage and value right from the start. And when I joined Isovalent half a year ago, we just we started right away with this one, and that's really great.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Well, very good. So, Roland, it sounds almost too perfect to me. Are you sure there are no catches?
It's perfect. Nothing can possibly go wrong here. Of course. Now, there are a few things. Of course, I mentioned the bill thing in the past. So with the AWS bill we suddenly had. And of course, if you hand this out to developers, they can start it on themselves. So they can consume it a lot. And of course, it costs money. But here, Instruct saves me quite well because it can define a lot of limits, like overall limits, or I can only send it to a certain developer and tell this developer he can, or they can only play it a couple of times, or it expires and so on. So I'm well protected, but sure, I have to keep an eye on this. But on the other hand, in terms of the marketing approach in general, there's a catch. Yes. When you do this, when you follow this, you hand over the marketing purchase journey to the developers. They are driving it now. They are in the driver's seat. And this is sometimes hard for salespeople because they're used to drive it on their own. They're used to be in control. And they have to learn the new way a little bit. With my sales past, I'd say this feeling of control of the salespeople was an illusion to begin with. But nevertheless, this is something new for them, and you got to enable them in this.
Thank you, Roland, for this talk. It's really interesting. I learned a lot from this conversation. Really appreciate that. So to summarize a few key takeaways from this story, I think as you said, don't sell, don't market, but educate, inspire developers. That's very important. And they love hands-on product experience, right? Get them hands-on with the products. And also important is the storytelling parts. You have to give them the context, and they need to understand how best they can apply in their real life situation. So I think these are the three takeaways on how to reach and engage with developers successfully. Thank you very much. So for our audience today, if you enjoyed this story and you're interested to create your first hands-on lab, I would like to invite you to sign up for our workshop using the QR code on the screen. And you can follow this workshop and get 2 months free access to the Instruct platform and create your first product lab in 1 hour. So thank you again, everyone, and hope you enjoyed this session. And thank you, Roland.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.